The arrival. The gleaming duraplast parade ground of the Galactic Defense Academy stretched out beneath the harsh light of 3 suns, casting long shadows that seemed to pulse with an alien intensity. Commander Vitara stood at rigid attention, cybernetic eye scanning the newest batch of cadets with a mixture of contempt and professional scrutiny. Mandibles clicking in irritation, Vitara muttered under their breath, "What sorry excuse for military material did they send me this time?" The automated scanning systems within their enhanced vision worked overtime, cataloging each cadet species, predicted physical capabilities, and potential weaknesses. That's when they saw her. Marina Rodriguez stood almost hidden behind a towering Kian cadet, her human frame unremarkable by most standards. But something about her bearing caught Vitara's attention, a predatory stillness that seemed out of place among the nervous shuffling of her fellow recruits. Lieutenant Kaur, Vitara's ever-present assistant, shifted nervously beside the commander. Should we make special accommodations for their unique physiology? The question hung in the air, laden with unspoken implications. Absolutely not, Vitara snapped, loud enough to make several cadets flinch. This is the Galactic Defense Academy, not some backwater training camp. If they can't handle our standard courses, they can go back to whatever gravity well they crawled out of. A flicker of movement, was that the corner of Rodriguez's mouth twitching upward? Impossible, Vitara thought. At this distance, such a subtle reaction shouldn't have been perceptible. Attention, cadets. Vitara's voice boomed across the parade ground, amplified by ceremonial armor that seemed designed to intimidate. You are here because your respective worlds believe you have what it takes to become officers in the Galactic Defense Force. I'm here to prove them wrong. A ripple of nervous chittering spread through the assembled aliens. The human didn't move a muscle. Over the next 6 cycles, Vitara continued, you will be pushed beyond your physical and mental limits. Many of you will fail. Some of you will quit. A few of you might even survive with your dignity intact. As the cadets were dismissed to their quarters, Vitara noticed Rodriguez lingering behind. She studied the distant obstacle course with an intensity that made the commander's defensive scales ripple. Something about that look reminded Vitara of a Venetian blade cat moments before it pounced. Just another student, Vitara said aloud, trying to convince themselves. Just another overconfident death worlder who will learn their place. But as Rodriguez finally turned away, moving with a grace that seemed almost predatory, a tiny voice in the back of Vitara's mind whispered that they might be very, very wrong. In the instructor's lounge, the betting began. 200 credits says she doesn't make it past the acid falls, chirped Sergeant Blim, bioluminescent spots flashing with excitement. Did you see how fragile her exoskeleton looks? Oh wait, she doesn't even have one. Commander Vexer watched through panoramic windows as Marina Rodriguez circled the gauntlet, the Academy's notorious obstacle course that had broken countless cadets across multiple species. The record stands at 7 standard cycles, Vitara announced, pointing to a massive holographic display. Set by Cadet Zach for 27 last year. Not a single student has completed it in less than 5 cycles since the Academy's founding. The display showed the course in all its horrifying glory, acid falls with a 90-meter drop through corrosive mist, gravity wells that could crush or float a cadet without warning, and the infamous neural maze that had sent more than one student to the medical bay babbling about their third metamorphosis. Little did they know that Marina Rodriguez was about to rewrite everything they thought they knew about training, survival, and the potential of human adaptability. The first test was coming. And nothing would ever be the same. Unexpected strategies. The morning of the gauntlet arrived with an electric tension that seemed to crackle through the artificial atmosphere of the Galactic Defense Academy. Instructors gathered in the observation room, their various appendages twitching with anticipation. Credits flickered across digital displays as betting pools grew larger by the minute. 1,000 credits says she drops out within the first hour, called out Training Officer Nix P-44, their crystalline body chiming with amusement. Humans may be death worlders, but they're not exactly known for their patience. But Zach, for 27, the previous record holder who had stayed on as a junior instructor, saw something different. Their iridescent scales shifted thoughtfully as they watched Marina Rodriguez through the panoramic windows. "You're all missing something important," Zach, for 27 drawled, drawing the attention of the other instructors. "Watch how she's moving." Indeed, Rodriguez had stopped at the entrance to the gauntlet, her movements catching the eye of even the most skeptical observers. She was stretching, but not in any conventional way. Each movement was precise, economical, almost surgical in its execution. "Impossible," whispered Lieutenant Core, their upper appendages working frantically at a data pad. "She couldn't have, she's mapping muscle memory." "Precisely," Zach, for 27 confirmed. "I've seen it before in apex predators. They run through the hunt in their mind before they strike." Commander Vitara's cybernetic eye zoomed in, catching that same unsettling smirk from the previous day. Rodriguez wasn't just studying the course, she was already running it in her head, dissecting each obstacle with a predator's calculating gaze. 2,000 credits, Vitara announced suddenly, causing the room to fall into an immediate hush, that she does something none of us expect. The betting frenzy that followed was interrupted by a soft chime. All eyes turned to the main display where Rodriguez had finally approached the starting line. Her environmental suit was the only protection allowed during the run, a basic model that seemed woefully inadequate for the challenges ahead. "Cadet Rodriguez," Vitara's voice boomed through the announcement system, "the current record for the gauntlet stands at 7 cycles. Do you understand the parameters of this test?" "Yes, Commander," she replied. But then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "Though I have one question, if I may proceed. The record is for completing all objectives, correct? Not just reaching the end." The instructors exchanged confused looks. Sergeant Blim's bioluminescent spots flickered rapidly. "What else would it be for?" Rodriguez's smile widened by just a fraction. "Just checking the rules, sir. Permission to begin." Vitara felt that same predatory tension from yesterday, but now it was radiating off the human in waves. Their cybernetic eye registered a slight elevation in her heart rate, but not from fear. From anticipation. "Commence when ready, Cadet," Vitara responded. "And may the void have mercy on your soft, shellless body." As the starting tone sounded, Rodriguez's smirk bloomed into a full grin that would have made a Venetian blade cat proud. And in that moment, just before she moved, Vitara realized why that predatory grace had seemed so familiar. She hadn't been studying the course like a student. She'd been hunting it like a professional. "Oh," Vitara said softly, "oh, we're in trouble." The first sign that something was terribly wrong came when Marina Rodriguez charged directly at the acid falls, not toward the safety paths, not toward the designated climbing spots, but straight at the deadliest part of the obstacle. Has she lost her mind? Blim's bioluminescent spots strobed in panic. She's running full speed at the highest concentration of corrosives. The assembled instructors watched in horror as Rodriguez reached the edge and jumped. But this wasn't the careful, calculated leap they'd trained thousands of cadets to make. This was a reckless, sprawling dive that sent her plummeting toward the artificial canyon floor. "Ha!" barked Nix P-44, their crystalline form vibrating with laughter. "Shortest gauntlet attempt in history. Kathier, mark me down for." The words died in their throat. Rodriguez had twisted in midair, her environmental suit's fabric rippling as she contorted her body. She shot through a gap in the acid spray, a gap barely wider than her shoulders. A gap that shouldn't have even existed. A gap that no one had ever noticed in 50 years of running the gauntlet. "That's not possible," Core mumbled, all 4 hands frantically taking notes. "The acid dispersal pattern is randomized specifically to prevent, she can't possibly." But she could. And she did. Rodriguez landed in a roll that would have shattered most species' bones, sprung to her feet, and was already sprinting toward the gravity wells before the first drops of acid hit where she'd been standing. The real test was just beginning. Human cadet breaks every training record, aliens can't believe their eyes. Part 3, The Gravity of Impossibility. The gravity wells posed a challenge that had broken countless cadets across multiple species. A maze of fluctuating gravitational fields, the obstacle could turn a simple step into a crushing force or send a cadet floating helplessly into the ceiling. Most students spent days, sometimes weeks, mapping the patterns, learning the safe paths through careful trial and error. Marina Rodriguez didn't slow down. She accelerated. She's accelerating, Zach, for 27 noted, their scales now a swirling mix of confused colors. Using the gravity shifts too, is she building momentum? Indeed, Rodriguez seemed to be timing her steps to catch the exact moment each gravity field shifted, letting the changes propel her forward at speeds that made the watching aliens feel nauseous. When a sudden gravity spike threatened to crush her, she was already gone, somehow predicting the pattern seconds ahead. 15 minutes, Lieutenant Core announced weakly. She's cleared 2 obstacles in 15 minutes. The previous record for just the acid falls was 6 hours. Then came the neural maze. And that's when true panic set in among the instructors. The maze was a psychological nightmare designed to disorient, to confuse, to make cadets question their own senses until they learned to trust their training over their instincts. Psychic barriers alone should have stopped any species in their tracks. Multilayered neural disruption fields were supposed to create hallucinations so intense that most beings would be reduced to quivering masses of confusion. Rodriguez ran through it backward. That's cheating. Nix P-44 chimed in distress. She can't just, the neural patterns are specifically designed to, why isn't it affecting her? Commander Vitara's response came slowly, understanding dawning with horrifying clarity. Because she's not reading the maze. She memorized it from the outside. She's running it blind. The room fell silent except for the soft ping of credits being transferred as bets were hastily revised. Commander Korink's voice shook slightly as they examined the monitoring systems. Unusual readings from her environmental suit. Commander, you need to see this. Vitara's cybernetic eye focused on the data stream, and their scales turned a pale shade of gray. She's humming. Running the gauntlet. Breaking every record they'd ever set. And she was humming a tune. Through the observation windows, they could see Rodriguez approaching the 4th obstacle, her pace never slowing. That predatory grace now unmistakable in every movement. She wasn't just running the gauntlet, she was hunting it. Treating each obstacle like prey to be taken down. I think, Zach, for 27 said softly, their scales now a solid shade of worried blue, we might need to reconsider our definition of impossible. Vitara's response was immediate and stark. Forget impossible. We need to reconsider our entire training program. Because whatever we thought we knew about human capabilities, that human is about to prove us very, very wrong. The Gauntlet's monitoring room had devolved into chaos. Credit markers flashed frantically as instructors tried to revise their bets while others argued loudly about whether Rodriguez's techniques could even be classified as standard movement. That's not running, Blim insisted, their bioluminescent spots flashing in a pattern that translated roughly to extreme distress. She's bouncing off the walls, literally bouncing off the walls. They weren't wrong. Rodriguez had reached the urban combat section, a massive artificial cityscape designed to teach cadets about fighting in varied terrain. Most species approached this section with careful tactical consideration, mapping routes, identifying cover, minimizing exposure. Marina Rodriguez treated it like a playground. Her movements defied everything the instructors understood about combat navigation. She didn't walk or run, she flowed. Using architectural elements as extensions of her own body, she transformed the complex urban terrain into a three-dimensional combat dance. Wall runs that should have been impossible. Momentum transfers that violated basic kinetic principles. Spatial awareness that suggested she was seeing multiple potential paths simultaneously. Computer, Vitara demanded, analyze her movement patterns. The holographic display flickered, then presented a dizzying array of calculated trajectories. Probability maps showed her selecting routes with a precision that seemed to predict potential interactions milliseconds before they occurred. "That's not human," Lieutenant Core whispered. "No human should be able to process information that quickly." But she was. And she was doing it while still humming that impossibly calm tune. In the observation room, a profound shift was occurring. What had started as mild curiosity had transformed into something closer to scientific terror. Marina Rodriguez wasn't just completing the gauntlet. She was rewriting everything they thought they knew about physical and cognitive limitations. And she was just getting started. Classified histories. The aftermath of Rodriguez's unprecedented performance triggered a response far beyond the typical administrative procedures of the Galactic Defense Academy. Within hours of completing the gauntlet, in a record-shattering time that was still being verified and re-verified, a classified data transfer began. Commander Vitara watched as encrypted files began streaming through the most secure communication channels, their cybernetic eye parsing information faster than any organic brain could process. Each document seemed to peel back another layer of Marina Rodriguez's carefully constructed history. Her personnel file was a masterpiece of calculated omissions. Born in the outer colonies of the Sol system, specifically the terraformed regions of Mars Prime, Marina Rodriguez appeared on the surface to be another standard human recruit. Her academic records were impressive but not extraordinary. Physical evaluations showed above-average performance, but nothing that would have suggested the capabilities she just demonstrated. But between the lines, something else emerged. Medical records showed multiple surgeries during childhood, highly classified procedures that had been redacted so thoroughly that even Vitara's advanced systems could only glimpse fragments. Genetic markers suggested extensive biological modifications, but the specifics were locked behind encryption that would take cycles to crack. Lieutenant Core, Vitara called, compile everything we know about Rodriguez's background. And I mean everything. The next set of documents revealed something even more intriguing. Rodriguez's family history was a labyrinth of military and scientific connections. Her maternal grandfather had been part of the first human deep space exploration teams. Her mother was a quantum engineering specialist who had worked on advanced neural interface technologies. But it was her father's file that caught Vitara's attention. Colonel Marcus Rodriguez. Special Operations. Classified so deeply that most of the document was pure black, with only a few lines visible. Missions that spanned multiple star systems. Tactical operations so sensitive that even mentioning them could trigger diplomatic incidents. The pieces were starting to form a complex puzzle. In the Academy's restricted research wing, a team of alien scientists was already dissecting the censored data from Rodriguez's gauntlet run. Her environmental suit, now in a hermetically sealed laboratory, was revealing secrets that challenged everything they understood about human physiology. Microscopic neural enhancers woven into the suit's fabric. Biomechanical augmentation points that allowed for superhuman movement. Adaptive response systems that seemed to predict environmental challenges milliseconds before they occurred. This isn't standard military augmentation, Dr. Zalara, a renowned xenobiological researcher, proclaimed. Her crystalline form refracted light as she examined the data. These are prototype technologies. Experimental systems that shouldn't even exist. The implications were staggering. If Rodriguez represented the leading edge of human capability, what did that mean for the existing power structures of the galactic community? Back in the observation room, Vitara replayed Rodriguez's gauntlet performance, frame by frame. Each movement was a calculated symphony of physics-defying precision. She wasn't just skilled, she was something else entirely. A communication pinged. Encrypted. Highest security clearance. Vitara's cybernetic eye scanned the message, and for the first time since taking command of the Academy, they felt something close to genuine fear. The message was simple. 3 words that changed everything. Project Prometheus activated. Whatever Marina Rodriguez truly was, whatever she represented, was far beyond a simple military cadet. She was a message. A warning. A demonstration of potential that would reshape the understanding of human capability. And this was just the beginning. The quantum horizon. The revelation of Project Prometheus sent shockwaves through the Galactic Defense Academy that would resonate far beyond its reinforced walls. Marina Rodriguez was no longer just a cadet, she had become a living proof of concept, a walking demonstration of humanity's hidden potential. In a secure briefing room designed to block all known forms of electromagnetic and quantum surveillance, a select group of high-ranking officials from multiple species gathered. Holographic displays flickered with Rodriguez's gauntlet performance, each replay revealing layers of capability that defied conventional understanding. "She's not just augmented," Dr. Zalara explained, her crystalline form casting prismatic reflections across the room. "Rodriguez represents a quantum leap in biological optimization. The neural interfaces we've detected are not merely technological enhancements, they're a fundamental reimagining of human cognitive and physical limitations." Commander Vitara stood at the center of the room, their cybernetic eye continuously analyzing the data streams. The Project Prometheus files, now partially decrypted, painted a picture both terrifying and fascinating. Humanity had been playing a long game. While other galactic civilizations focused on traditional technological advancement, humans had been quietly exploring the boundaries of biological potential. Rodriguez was the first public manifestation of decades of classified research. "The implications are staggering," argued Admiral Krell, a veteran of the Centauri conflict. "If one human can demonstrate this level of capability, what happens when we start seeing entire units with these modifications?" The room fell silent. Back at the academy, Marina Rodriguez remained remarkably calm. Her performance had transformed her from an anonymous cadet to the most discussed individual in the galactic military community. Interview requests poured in. Research teams from a dozen different species wanted comprehensive biological and psychological evaluations. She declined them all. Instead, she requested a meeting with Commander Vitara. The request itself was unusual, most cadets would be terrified to approach the commander after such a performance. But Rodriguez approached the request with the same calculated precision she had shown during the gauntlet. The meeting room was a study in tension. Vitara's cybernetic systems scanned every micro-movement, every subtle shift in Rodriguez's physiological responses. "I know you have questions," Rodriguez began, her voice steady. "About Project Prometheus." "About me." An understatement, Vitara responded, mandibles clicking with a mixture of irritation and fascination. What followed was not an explanation, but a demonstration. Rodriguez began to describe, in precise, scientific detail, the quantum neural interfaces that allowed her unprecedented environmental processing. She spoke of genetic modifications that allowed for rapid cognitive recalibration, of biomechanical enhancements that transformed human physical limitations into opportunities. But it was more than just a technical briefing. It was a message. "Humanity has been preparing," she said. "Not for conflict, but for collaboration. The galaxy is changing. And we're ready to change with it." The classified files would later reveal the true scope of Project Prometheus. It wasn't a military program. It was an evolutionary strategy. A method of preparing humanity for the complex, interconnected future of galactic civilization. Rodriguez was its first true success. But not its last. As the galactic community continued to debate the implications of her performance, Marina Rodriguez returned to her training. To most observers, she was just another cadet. But to those who knew the truth, she represented something far more significant. A bridge between what humanity was, and what it could become. The gauntlet had been more than a test. It was a declaration. Humanity had arrived. And nothing would ever be the same.